Hello footy fans, welcome to another ripping episode of the Ultimate AFL show for season 2016. Today I'm going to be reviewing the semi-finals that were played on the weekend, as well as previewing one of the best weekends in footy, and that is preliminary final weekend. Of course, only two teams can make that grand final, and we are so close to that very day now. So let's not waste any time, let's get straight in to looking back at the semi-finals, week 2 of the 2016 AFL Final Series. The first semi-final was on Friday night at the home of footy, the MCG, between the Hawks and the Dogs. Of course, the Dogs surprised a lot of non-Western Bulldog fans with that win against the Eagles in week 1 of the finals, in that elimination final. And the Hawks, well, they were coming off a loss to Geelong. This was their this was their last chance, last chance to make it through to the preliminary final stages, and they got off to a good start, the Hawks. They led at quarter time 3-4 to 1-5. I felt like they had the edge in the first quarter, and in fact they had the edge in the second half, to be honest, because they led at half time 7-5 to 6-10. But something happened in the third quarter where the Hawks were just overtaken by an absolute great young Western Bulldogs side, and the Western Bulldogs had a really good lead. They kicked about 6 goals in the third quarter to the Hawks' 1 goal, and had a pretty convincing three-quarter time lead. 12-11 the Dogs to the Hawks, 8-9, and then the last quarter the Dogs were able to hold off the Hawks. The Hawks did try to come back, but it wasn't enough. They did kick a few goals, but it wasn't enough. The Dogs had done the damage and had kicked the premiers of the last 3 years out of week 2 of the finals. The final score was Hawthorn 12-12-84, defeated by an exciting Western Bulldogs side 16-11-107. The goal kickers for the Hawks, Shields and Hodge, kicked 2 each. Sicily, Gunston, Palopolo, Rioli, Hill, Bruce, Fitzpatrick and Burgoyne kicked singles each. And then for the Dogs, Stringer kicked 3 as well as Picken. You then had Smith and Bond and Pelly kicking 2 each. Wood, McLean, Dunkley, Roughhead, Dixon and Daniel kicked singles for the Dogs in front of just over 87,000. In fact, the correct or official crowd was 87,823, so way over the 87,000 mark, which is very, very good, especially for a semi-final. I tell you what, the Western Bulldogs, they just played some very exciting football in this game. They're through to their first preliminary final since 2010. There's a lot of hope at the Western Bulldogs at the moment. Of course, not only is the AFL side through to a preliminary final, but the VFL side for the Western Bulldogs is actually through to the VFL Grand Final on Sunday. So a lot of things are going right at the club at the moment, and it would just be remarkable if they were able to beat the Giants and get themselves through to their first grand final in such a long time. So a ripping game against the Dogs. They've got a tough game on Saturday, which I'll preview in just a couple of minutes, but they're more than capable. And the Hawks, the premiers of the last 3 years, I think they've had enough success. I think I don't think it's a bad thing that we're seeing them bow out of the finals in week 2. Of course, they haven't been the side of what they were the last 3 years. This year, of course, winning all those games by 10 points or less is a great example of that. So congratulations to the Hawks. They have been a fantastic team over the last 3-4 years, but the Western Bulldogs, it's their time to shine. They're through to their first preliminary final since 2010. And on Saturday night, it was another semi-final clash, this time between the Sydney Swans and the Adelaide Crows at the SCG. It was so good to see finals football back at an historic ground in the Sydney Cricket Ground. And, the Swans, it was their home ground, looking to bounce back after that shock loss to the Giants at ANZ Stadium the week before. Of course, this was to put them through to the preliminary final. The Crows, they got a good win against North Melbourne last week. Of course, round 23, they were damaged by a loss to the Eagles, it was going to be a tough clash for them, and it proved that way early because the Swans came out and kicked 7 goals, 3 behinds to the Crows, 3-2, so they had a very comfortable lead at quarter time. And it really went from there. I thought the Swans just dominated this game, probably did what they had to do to get themselves through to a preliminary final, which is what we all expected them to be at, of course, 10-5 to 4-4 at half-time with the Swans leading, 12-9 to 8-9 at three-quarter time with the Swans leading at three-quarter time. The Crows, they were in it at three-quarter time. It was only by about 4 goals that they were down by, but yeah, the Swans... too good in the end. The final score 18-10, 118 defeated the Crows 12-10, 82. The goal kickers for the Swans, Franklin went from kicking 0 in the qualifying final to kicking 4 in this game against the Crows. Papley also kicked 4, McGlynn kicked 3, Richards kicked 2, that's Xavier Richards, Rowan Parker, Hanelbury, Mitchell and Heaney kicking singles for the Swans. And then the goal kickers for the Crows, Betts kicked 3, he got multiple goals like he always does. Cameron kicked 2 as well as Lynch and Walker and McGovern, and then Thompson kicked a single. This was in front of 38,000 people at the SCG. A few injuries to the Swans, McVeigh with a calf and Rowan with a knee, but there is speculation that he could return to the side to take on Geelong on Friday night. It would be unbelievable because I thought that was probably season-ending injury, but he might be able to come back, and they will need him. They will need him. He's a very important player to the Swans. So the Swans getting the job done. They got themselves through to a preliminary final, a chance to win the game against the Cats and then go through to a grand final. The Crows, I thought their season was probably damaged in round 23. I think they had that chance to get that top 4 spot, but unfortunately they lost that game and then obviously went on to win last week, but then this week was always going to be a challenge. But congratulations to Don Pike. He has done pretty well at his first year at the club, at the Crows. I think he's done a really good job, and I think there's only room for improvement from here really for the Crows. I think they can be up there next year, possibly top 4, if they obviously get some recruiting and so forth. Of course, there was speculation today that Dustin Martin might be going to the Crows, but I think that's a very false kind of rumour. But he would be good to have at the Crows, especially with Dangerfield, who did prove to be a big exit from their club. I think with him, they might have been able to do a bit better this year. But the Swans through to a preliminary final. The Crows, well done to Don Pike on a good first season at the Crows, and it'll be interesting to see what they do next year. Okay, time now to move straight in to preliminary final week. And we start with the first game, the first preliminary final at the MCG on Friday night. It is Geelong and the Sydney Swans. This is going to be an epic, of course. The last time they met at Simmons Stadium, the Cats were caught napping and the Swans were able to get on top and pretty much dominate the game from their perspective. So it's going to be a massive game, 7:50 p.m, like I mentioned, at the MCG, Friday the 23rd of September. Look, it's going to be interesting to see if McVeigh and Rowan play. Of course, they are real big losses to the club if they were to, or to the team, if they were to not take part in the match on Friday night. Might be the safer option though, because they might not be 100% fit, but who knows. There has been speculation that Rowan's going to play and possibly even McVeigh. An interesting stat here, Swans have won 3 of the last 5 matches. It's been a while since they've actually met each other at the MCG though. This is the first time in a very long time that they've met at the MCG. They've ever been meeting at Simmons Stadium, ANZ, or what's the other one, SCG I think, or SCG. So it's going to be a big game. I think I'm going to take a punt here and go the Swans. Geelong have been an outstanding side this year. That combination of Dangerfield and Selwood has been lethal. I think the bye is going to be an interesting factor. Of course, the last time, I heard an interesting stat today, the last time they faced the Swans, they're actually coming off a bye that weekend, going into that game against the Swans at Simmons Stadium. So I'm gonna tip the Swans. I think they can win this. If Franklin's in form, we know they can win at the MCG. They've beaten a couple of sides there this year, in particular the Hawks earlier in the year. I think they can do this. I think they can win. It'll be a good game. It'll be close. I think if you want me to tip a margin, I think I'm going to say the Swans by 5 points, and it will be a close one. It will be probably a few lead changes. It's going to be a ripping clash. I can't wait for this one. The first preliminary final, Friday night, 7:50 p.m, the home of footy. Can't get much bigger. And the final game of preliminary final weekend is a ripper. It is the GWS Giants and the Western Bulldogs, two of the rising teams of 2016 and 2015, I guess, as well. But really 2016, they've been the two sides. So I guess a lot of people wouldn't have expected to make it this far in the finals. To be honest, I didn't think the Giants were going to be making the finals this year, but they've proved me wrong. And the Western Bulldogs, well, just as a Western Bulldogs supporter, I'm just thrilled that they've gotten this far in the finals, considering all the injuries they've had, all the all the problems and so forth, all the hurdles along the way. They are just one win away from playing off in the 2016 AFL Grand Final. So this is going to be a ripping game. It will be Saturday the 24th September at Spotless Stadium, starting at 5:15 p.m. Yes, 5:15 p.m. The reason behind that is if the Dogs win, they can fly home that night and, of course, make it back to Melbourne before midnight. And, yeah, like I just said, ripping game. If you want to know some of the stats, of course, the Dogs preliminary final, first preliminary final since 2010. Of course, the Giants playing their first ever preliminary final. Of course, only played their first final a couple of weeks ago and won. I honestly, I'm going to tip the Western Bulldogs because obviously I'm a Western Bulldogs supporter, but it's going to be a ripping game. If I was not a Western Bulldogs supporter, I would be saying that I just don't know who to tip in this game because these are two teams who have been outstanding, unpredictable and young teams this season who have went on to do great things. And to be honest, it's hard to believe that one of those teams is going to be in the grand final at the end of Saturday night. So, ripping game. Of course, the Dogs have obviously Stringer in form in that game against the Hawks. He was really in form. They've got Picken, they've got Boyd, they've got Dalhouse, they've got a lot of other players, McRae and Dunkley, who are in ripping form, who can really perform. Of course, this side is a different side to when they met in round 9. It's going to be a ripper. The Giants have got some great players as well. I can't wait for this game Saturday night, and from a Dogs point of view and from a fan point of view that goes to the Western Bulldogs, I'm hoping that the Western Bulldogs win. Go Dogs, it's going to be a ripper game. So before I head off, I just want to note that Monday night, that is Monday the 26th of September, it is Brownlow Metal Night. Of course, Patrick Dangerfield is probably the key favourite there. Rory Sloane's probably up there as well as Dustin Martin. It is going to be a great night. It always is a great night in the AFL calendar. Of course, the Monday before the grand final, it is a sensational time to have it. It will be live from 8:15, I believe. Of course, you'll have to check your local guides on 7 and Fox Footy because they are going live with red carpet and pre-shows and stuff at different times, but you can watch it on Channel 7 and Fox Footy live. And it's going to be a good night. I love Brownlow Medal Night. It's the start of what is a great week in the AFL season. And that is it for this episode of the Ultimate AFL Show preliminary final stage. It's going to be a ripping weekend this weekend. I do hope you enjoyed. This episode. Of course, don't forget to like, comment and share. And don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned for a new episode next week, the grand final edition of the Ultimate AFL Show. It is going to be a massive episode as we preview the 2016 AFL Grand Final. And then the next week I'll have another episode to wrap up the season, wrap up the Grand Final, and then that will be it. So there's only 2 episodes left of the Ultimate AFL Show, so do subscribe and stay tuned for the last 2 episodes in the next 2 weeks. So thank you very much for watching. Enjoy preliminary final weekend, and until next week, I'm Jacob. Bye for now.